College football finds its conscience as Red Raider fans consider whether this juice is too sour to be worth the squeeze.
You are Locked On Texas Tech, your daily podcast on the Texas Tech Red Raiders. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Great to be with you again on Locked On Texas Tech on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day, always free and available on YouTube or anywhere you get podcasts. Now the number one sports podcast network in the world with the only Chris Level. I'm Casey Cowan. Chris, great to be back with you. And on this episode, the fallout. Brendan Sorsby's injunction granted, as you know by now, and the reaction far and wide, as we discussed on one of our most recent episodes. You have drawn the ire of the nation. We will get to some of what we have seen reported and discussed as it relates to the possibility of scheduling boycotts, emergency meetings, and of course, questions back on the home front among the natives, among the Red Raider faithful, Chris, simply as to whether this juice is worth the squeeze. Somehow we got from a Will Hammond ACL to college football finding its conscience this week. And I got to tell you, it's been a little jarring for me as someone who was birthed in the briar patch known as the Southwest Conference in the era of Sherwood Blunt and Barry Switzer and Jackie Sherrill and the Miami Hurricanes and so many great things that were a part of college sports in the 80s. It's a little astonishing to see such unity in the name of virtue and integrity. And shout out to those who stopped by and visited our comment section for an all-time day of discourse there. Enjoyed the spazzing out by many, and we'll invite you to continue to do so. The water is warm, mostly because many are wetting themselves in rage as to what they perceive Texas Tech to have built. A bridge too far. Let's get to what's happening in the conference and from a scheduling perspective in just a moment, Chris. But I do want to start on the home front where many Red Raiders are simply asking, is this worth actually pursuing? You mentioned at the very beginning of all of this, you felt like Texas Tech would see this through to the end and, quote unquote, run out this ground ball. We had to imagine they were prepared for a massive PR battle on the other side of whatever came to pass. Do you think they were prepared for the volume to be this loud? And is there any shot or consideration at pulling out of this pattern now?
Yeah, to your first point, yeah, a lot of people have found religion, or they've like picked their moral compass out of their pocket, and be like, oh, okay, well this thing works, so I guess I better use it on this day. And basically the only thing that's happened here is that the kid against the NCAA won an injunction by a judge. Texas Tech had backed this player 2 or 3 weeks ago, very publicly. The athletic director had, the school president had, Joey had on some various platforms, and no gnashing of teeth, no reaction at all. So it's hard to take a lot of these, whether it's in an official capacity or a fan or whatever, it's hard to take a lot of it seriously, because it's like nothing changed from Texas Tech's point of view yesterday compared to and that's where it leads us right now, is it worth it? Do you now, because the heat's getting turned up and you're feeling this pressure applied to you, or maybe you're not feeling it, I don't know. But the threat or the reality of we're not going to schedule you in anything anymore, I mean, that wouldn't be good. I don't think any of us would sit here and go, oh man, that's great news. No, that wouldn't be good at all. Now it's a bit rich for me though. Like there's some layers here. We can take this the Big 12 route, we can take this the Georgia route, or we can take this the Nebraska route in order. They're all kind of the same, but a bit different. You played Georgia in women's tennis a few years ago. There was a men's basketball game, part of the Big 12 SEC Challenge. I don't know, 8 to 10 years ago. There may have been a few other things. You're not playing these people. You never were going to play them. They weren't going to play you really in anything. It was only going to end up in a neutral site setting, in a tournament setting, all that stuff. Okay, so why they felt the need to play the the integrity card, you've got all these people behind you playing NASCAR, and there was some unfortunate situations that have happened because of that. And why are you like, go pour a bucket of water on your burning house, man? Like what? I don't. So there's that deal. Nebraska, you did play them in softball this year. Okay, that's notable because both of these teams were both really good and both World Series teams, but you hadn't played them in hardly anything else in a decade. Speaking of softball, there were already this. It just wasn't public, but there was already this kind of boycotting of playing Tech softball prior to the season. People didn't agree with how you put your roster together, and that this is the one recourse they had. So they weren't. This is why your RPI suffered a bit. So that was already kind of going on. It just wasn't as public. But you weren't playing Nebraska really in anything either. And there's some other irony too in that Matt Rule and Joey McGuire go way back and are very good friends and mentor mentee, the whole thing. But again, so I just don't know why the grandstanding of it. And then it leads us to the Big 12 threat.
Yeah, before we get to the Big 12, can we get back to, I guess, actually the Tech angle in that?
Okay,
I'm still wondering, do you feel like they're second-guessing this at all? Because there were going to be a couple of specific points that this felt the worst for them. That was going to be on the day that the legal arguments were delivered. We already covered that days ago. And that was going to be the day that the decision was delivered. So, do you think there is any feeling of this impact, or is it just mostly – we're prepared for this, and this is what it looks like to go all out in backing this case?
I don't know. Okay, so there's some layers here to this. You can't really decide now. Like, you know what? Now we're not going to back you.
Oh, we didn't know y'all were going to be mad.
Right. Like you kind of had made this decision, weeks ago. And again, that's what's interesting about everybody now going, no integrity. They decided to do this, to do that. They did it weeks ago, and there was almost zero reaction. There was some, but almost zero reaction. And it's just because nobody thought he was going to win. Nobody was going to thought that this injunction was going to be granted. And now it's like, the other thing that is because you're supposed to be good this year. If you were middling, nobody would have cared. There wouldn't have been this reaction. I'm sorry, I don't buy it. Oh yeah, everybody would have. No, I don't. But that's why Georgia has something to say about you, because you're ranked in the top 10 like they are. That's and we can play the moral compass card of. This just goes against the integrity of the sport, and how can we, and then there's some Big 12 coaches that I find interesting that have made some commentary about the integrity card. Teach his own. Okay, teach his own.
I've just got to apologize, as I already described. I just sort of was unaware that integrity was involved in any of this.
Right.
That's just the environment I grew up in, so that's my bad.
To which we can joke and we can say, we've often wondered if the Big 12 games were on the up and up all along. I've watched officiating in this conference since it existed in 1996. Mike Leach famously made a phone call to the league office at halftime in Austin, Texas, for goodness sakes, right? What are we doing? So, if we want to, and some of the people that have made these statements were on said staff. Just throwing that out there.
I think that's part of what's been tough for a lot of Red Raider fans, is feeling like, and certainly speaking personally, feeling like you were standing to be browbeaten by so many of those same people who have sanitized all of this that's included in college football or college sports for so many years. And I think in part there is some righteous indignation, and also just echoing what exactly we have said, which is that a player that breaches any kind of convo about the competitive integrity of a sport is likely one to find a hard red line drawn. We've said that over and over. Everybody understands the specific category that's involved here with a gambling infraction. But at the same time, Chris, when we're talking about who would lay down their sword first for a multi-million-dollar investment at the quarterback position, I feel like it'd be a fairly empty list and not near as crowded as the list of who is not going to waste an opportunity to posture. I care very little to almost none about the Georgia or Nebraska angle. It's not good to have people boycotting you on a schedule, clearly. Could actually be good, though, if you didn't have to share a city with University of Georgia motorists. So there is a silver lining possibly to that. The Big 12 angle, though, much more intriguing. So let's talk about some emergency conversations now from a league standpoint. First, today's episode brought to you by Wayfair, and patio season has arrived. Nothing better than having an outdoor space that's comfortable, functional, and totally your vibe. Whether it's a backyard patio, balcony, or deck, the right setup is the key to maximum relaxation this summer. That's where Wayfair comes in. From outdoor seating and patio lighting to grills, rugs, decor, storage, and more, Wayfair is your one-stop shop for creating an outdoor space that fits your style without busting your budget. Plus, with over 20 million five-star reviews and Wayfair verified products, it's easy to shop with confidence. These cool West Texas nights make for the perfect patio season all across the 806 and beyond. And I'm on mine almost every night after getting it outfitted just right with Wayfair. So do the same and transform your outdoor space today with can't miss deals that won't last long by heading to wayfair.com right now to get your space ready for way less. That's WAYFAIR.com, wayfair.com. Wayfair, every style, every home. The Big 12 angle, though, much more intriguing. So let's talk about some emergency conversations now from a league standpoint, because you are a conference member and there are conference bylaws and agreements, I guess, in place and some perception, I guess, of something being enforceable at some point in time. So can we talk about how real this is whenever it comes to some of the things that were being said and reported on, and maybe what would be discussed in upcoming athletics directors and presidents meetings, I believe, scheduled this week?
Yeah, I mean, I think I've seen it suggested, and I don't disagree with the premise that this is maybe Brett Yormark's trickiest situation to deal with since he's been commissioner, because you have one of the bigger brands, one of the defending conference champion and all that on one side, and 15 others on another. And I'm sure that some of those 15 are louder than others. To which I really want to say to Gene Taylor, who decides to be big tough guy and cuss a lot, like you didn't feel the need to cuss aloud when your in-state rival was cheating with Adidas and acquiring players under the table and all that, and there were suspensions for this activity. But you know, where were you then with your F words and your B words and your, like, I mean, come on, dog. Like, nobody can take that seriously, man. Like, I mean, seriously.
He was the head posturer in charge yesterday.
Yeah, like that's just lost on me. It's like, what I mean, where's the red nose and the floppy shoes? But this is, I mean, you mentioned the bylaws and everything. Like, do I believe for a second that anybody from the Big 12 will or can boycott playing Texas Tech? If you do, if that's the way this lands, effective immediately, Texas Tech is no longer a member of the Big 12 conference. Okay, so that's the big red button that everybody would have chose to push. Otherwise, you'll play Texas Tech and you'll like it, because the media rights agreements indicate that you must, if you want to get this money that they all need, including Texas Tech. It sounds good. But I don't know. I don't know what the conference is allowed to do. I mean, it puts Brett Yormark in a very difficult spot trying to mediate. I don't know if they are allowed to, because this is back on the original portion of what you were bringing up, Cowan, is that like it kind of goes back to, like, what's next? Is this a storm that everybody will just weather? Does it get quieter? Does the Big 12 do something? What can they do? What are they allowed to do? What would suffice? What would please? I mean, because I don't know if there's a lot of middle ground here. It's like not allowed to play in Texas Tech. If they were to act and say, you know what, we are also going to come in and suspend him for more games and all these things, like that goes against the judge's orders. Is this a player that would sue you? I mean, there's a lot, and then like so you're now willing to bend, but before you're willing to. I mean, so there's just a lot of dynamics at play here. I'm not smart enough to figure all that out, but I am like you. I am curious as to where we go from here. I think that's a fair, and does I feel like while we're talking about this, I need to bring this part up. How aware is Brendan Sorsby of all of the fire out there? And does he feel like, man, I don't want to put y'all all through this. Like, y'all don't need to be not being able to play games or scheduled, whatever. And are these threats real, or is it just grandstanding? I mean, I don't know. Like, what's this all feel like 2 weeks from now? What's this feel like 6 weeks from now? What's it feel like? I don't know.
Well, we hope Tech is going to be a winning football team, and that will regenerate any volume that's died down. If it were to die down, I think it's a big question if it will or won't. Again, there's some different things happening here. There's some righteous indignation whenever it comes to someone continuing to play on a sport that they participated in previously and wagered on previously. And that's pretty simple to understand that is uncharted territory. And as I've said many, many times, because I embrace the duality of man, which I exhibit every day out of this side and this side, cannot believe that someone will be afforded the ability via whether an NCAA eligibility ruling or a temporary injunction, the afforded to play. And I'm glad that someone that gets this big break is someone that's Texas Tech. So those two things align to me still at the same time as a college sports fan or simply as a Red Raider. But also at the same time, Chris, I go back to something we said on this program already, I guess a couple of weeks ago, when you began to feel some of this pain as far as the public backlash as a Tech fan, and wondering how you wanted your institution, your athletics department, to be represented, because we're making the same thing out of all these arguments that everybody else is, like mental health and building team camaraderie and so on and so forth. And I said at one point previously, I guess this is what it feels like to go all out in your defense. And if you were going to go at all in your defense of said player, you could only go all out. So it wouldn't really stand to reason that now there would be any bending the other way just because the volume has been at the loudest point that it's been. But the Big 12 conversation is one to take, I think, very seriously, and I do lend plenty of credence to what is going to be discussed this week, and it's a big spot for Brett Yormark to be in. But I don't know necessarily, Chris, if I'm looking at Texas Tech again as someone singular that is doing something others would not do. And I know there are other comparisons out there maybe to make, a lot of them hypothetical, but I feel like most, because of the layers of this, the context you already mentioned competitively for what your team is and has been, the past 18 to 24 months of your existence, this player, this position, it all combines to make something that I feel like most, if they could, or repeat in their own situation.
Because this comes back to there's an investment being made. I mean, and again, if you weren't any good, you probably wouldn't have invested in a player like this and all the things around him. And again, I think that whether you can want to call this deflection or rationalizing or whatever, you're sitting here going, wait, this activity went on at two other institutions and we're the ones suffering the consequences? To use Gene Taylor's phrase, that's F and BS. I see you, Gene. I mean, I got you, man. I got you.
Posturing on us, Chris.
Put it on a shirt. So they made the decision that this kid has got a problem, and we back him. I mean, we talked about this with Joey. This is just who he is, right? And either to a fault or I love that about him. However you want to feel about it, go for it. But everybody had to know on all sides of this that there's a chance he's going to get this injunction granted. And yet now we're, it's interesting because now does I mean, I guess does the Texas Tech Sorsby part of this? Do they have the stomach for real ramifications, potential ramifications for the upset in the apple cart on the conference now being on a different thing and you being on an island? I don't know. I don't know what's real and what's not. I don't know. And then everybody decided to like get really mad yesterday, but they weren't really mad before, or maybe they just were, because again, I just don't think anybody thought he would actually win this. But yeah, it's there's a lot here, man, and I'm real curious because what you get into, we're talking investment, right? Okay, so let's just play this out. What if the conference steps in or the school steps in and is like, you know what, we're gonna do this now? Well, that goes against the judge's orders. So now can the kid sue? And he'd have every right to. It all goes back to the investment and the fact that you are good, that he's good. If all these things are not true, we're not really spending much time on this, or it's a non-story, or far less than, or you wouldn't have backed him to begin with potentially. I mean, or he wouldn't have been here to begin with potentially. Whatever, pick one.
Yeah, I think there are so many things that can be true at the same time.
Yeah, that's right.
Part of it. There is a disgust when it comes to somebody that's gambled on a sport they participate in and continuing to be able to play. I think there's also just a general opportunity taken to lash out at Texas Tech specifically because of what I've already said, our existence the past 18 to 24 months or so. And then there's the opportunity to posture. And you get out there and you kind of get your moral masturbation on and you show everybody how virtuous you are and how much you care in all these areas. We'll get headlines, a cycle will roll through, and we'll see if anything comes of it. Probably be a fool, I guess, in some situations to waste that opportunity, especially if you get headlines on the police blotter, typically like the University of Georgia does. So as long as you can understand all the layers to this and all that's feeding the noise, then maybe it is easier to process. And Chris, from my perspective, I wouldn't imagine Texas Tech would generate a change in course at all. I believe they would be prepared for this kind of thing. And even though it may seem very, very loud to us, I think, again, this is something that they've been preparing to navigate.
Yeah, and then they're going to know more than us. I just don't know, because I mean, let's just play it out. Like we've laid it out here. You're not really playing Georgia in anything. You're not playing Nebraska in anything. There was no plans to do so. They weren't really going to play. And you're looking for these football games to fill up because the SEC already backed out of a series with Mississippi State. NC State of the ACC was like, hey, we're not doing this. And the conference as a whole has already been squeezed a bit. This is why Brett Yormark proposed at the spring meetings 10 conference games, everybody. What do you think? Because everybody's kind of getting the same squeeze. 20 conference games for basketball. Like we did this before. What do you say? Let's go back to it. That it garners you more money. It's more content for the media rights fee. I mean, just something to ponder out there. But there's a reason why that this is being tossed out there. But back to the we're not going to schedule you anymore. I'm going to say something and talk out of both sides of my mouth. So bear with me. But big picture. The we're not going to schedule you thing anymore probably would affect football the least, which is ironic. However, it would affect you potentially in the immediate because if you really do have hopes for playing USC in this 2-game set, that's a Big Ten school, and that could be now off the table. I mean, Illinois is supposed to play basketball here in November, so. And they may look at your roster, which is not complete yet, and go, "Damn, that would have been one that we would have liked to have played." I don't know. I don't know, but that would have some reaching effects with your department in general. And there's a financial component or a strength of schedule component, but it's also just the being blackballed or being like tossed aside PR part of it that I think that's what I'm curious how everybody involved here, do they have the stomach for that? And is that actually real? Like, are these threats actually real? Because this, I think I mentioned to you, this was already going on in softball. We were already seeing this play out. This wasn't public. This has become much more public. So, yeah.
Going to be really intriguing to see how it settles at the end of the week on the conference level in particular, and if you have things happening or developing further. Could be wrong on the Tech angle, and maybe the stomach is churning and they say, never mind, we're good. Or maybe there's movement, again, from the individual angle in Brendan Sorsby's mind, because clearly a lot that is going to continue to be on him if he's to pursue college eligibility and being on the field.
Yeah, I along the lines of what you said, I'm just curious what his thought process is right now, and has that changed over the last day or so? I don't know, but again, like, he's like the Tech part of it. Like, you decided to go through with this, like, you can't, like, you had to have known, you know, because I had somebody ask me, man, is there a chance that he'd just be like, man, I've caused a lot of problems for you guys. I don't want to put you guys through that. I'm gonna move on. But you could have done that weeks and months ago. But everybody, the support was there. You decided to run out the ground ball, and here we are. And so I don't know. There's just a lot. There's a lot of layers here. But I feel like there's still more to come. I just don't know what that is or what that looks like. I don't know. Because
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, I think this is done. I don't think the NCAA, the appeals, you can read all that you want. I think that is done. That trial is going to take place in February. It's over. I am curious, the league. I'm curious, the Tech part of it, the Sorsby part of it. And I'm just not smart enough to understand, like, what all would happen, or what cards could get played, what are allowed to be played, because he does have a judge ruling in his favor, and so there's only certain things that, because it states pretty clearly no one can touch the kid, really. He's got to be allowed to practice and play, and the only things that he must miss are the 2 games. And people have asked that. Where did the 2 games come from? This is what his team proposed. I think it was with the thought in mind, like, let's go under where we get mediated at. And we're mentioning the precedent of the Indiana volleyball coach, and the NCAA could counter. We meet in the middle, that whole deal. But they were like, no, we're not. He's ineligible, whatever. And so that's why the judge just accepts what was proposed. That's he didn't come up with that. It was Sorsby's camp, but it was the NCAA who decided not to get into that, which is their right, and that's why it landed on 2. So there's a lot here, man. It's a lot to process. We're all going through it, and people are pissed. People are happy. People are kind of wondering aloud, and okay, but yeah, there's a lot of feelings out there. I certainly have seen a lot of it. You have too. And I just don't know how quickly those are going to go away, or are these going to be here for the end of time? I don't really know that.
But still, some sweeping declarations being made to those ends by, I guess, others who absolutely do know. So looking forward to hearing from more of them, and hope you'll join us in the YouTube comment section for the ongoing and very respectful dialogue. No doubt about that, Chris. And I also think just a terrific reminder of the dangers that could come with entirely turning our world over to attorneys and therapists. So something to just keep in mind all the while as we roll through this process. Appreciate your time to continue to keep an eye on what is developing this week. We will be back together very, very soon for more on this front, I have no doubt. So looking forward to it, and I'm sick enough to mean that.
Yes, sir. Keep hope alive if that's what you want to do. Yeah, there you go. Head on a swivel too. Yeah.
And whether you want to or not, get subscribed on YouTube or anywhere you get podcasts so you never miss an episode. It's going to be good for you. Thank you to the everydayers for always being out there riding along. Get your Locked On Texas Tech everyday fix ad free by checking out the the Everydayer Club, $5 a month. Get your ad-free audio episodes, exclusive access to the Locked On Network Discord, and more. It's linked in our show notes. Also a link to a free 14-day trial to check out the Matador Mob, your direct line to Chris and myself with one-on-one text sent straight to your phone. For Chris, I'm Casey. Thanks as always for the time. We hope to see you back for the next round on Locked On Texas Tech.